When I found microdosing, it changed my life. At that period of my life, I was drinking 3 days a week to blackouts, doing blow every single weekend. I was on pharmaceuticals and thought I was living life the way I was supposed to be happy. I was making $500,000 a year and I was just in it, bro. Depressed, anxious, miserable. We go to the beach one day and my buddy gives me a mushroom chocolate, probably around 250 milligrams. I trusted him and I ate this chocolate. 90 minutes later, I felt the sun on my skin for the first time. I went and got in the water, felt hugged by nature. I felt present. The mental chatter, the non-stop voice that just goes on and on with the judgments and the triggers and the self-shaming and guilting, all that went away. That first microdose, I was able to back up and like, I don't want any of this shit. I don't want the women, I don't want the money. I spent a few more years in finance and then I sold my house and used all that money to start Entheos Holistics. We create microdoses for specific uses. So one's like cognitive function, it's like a nootropic. One's for more emotional regulation and creating more softness in life. We have another one that's a social blend. So it's a great alcohol replacement. And the whole purpose of all of them is each formula we use herbs and plants from Chinese and Ayurvedic knowledge. Those create the energetic on it. The psilocybin's the activator.
Welcome to the Ascension podcast. I have an incredible guest for you today. The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Austin West. Thank you so much.
What's up, brother?
For joining us on the scene today. This, my friend, is an incredible student of the cosmos, an elegant thinker, a beautiful heart, a powerful man. Man, there's so many ways that I could go on and describe you. Wow. How would you describe yourself?
Man, what a great question. Yeah, I like to think of myself as a curious explorer of life. And even in speaking those words, because it's like I've never had them come out of my mind, they feel generic in a way. But it's almost like not really possible to put into words how I see myself sometimes. But the older I get, the more I realize curiosity is at the core of how I approach everything. Right. And the more curious I am, the more I tend to learn, the more I understand about myself, the more I understand about myself, the more I understand about the world. And so really taking everything I do from the lens of curiosity and figuring out like, why am I creating this for myself? What am I teaching myself in this? Why is this showing up in this way? Right. I can attune my awareness to anything in life. Why this thing? And so I'd say curiosity is kind of at the root of who I find myself as today.
I love that. This man is a coach, a philosopher, a mentor, a mycopreneur, so many different things. We're currently in the arena together, which is a cohort that you lead. It's a men's group.
Yeah.
And it is deeply profound because we not only just share as humans and connect on a heart level, but you've also devised an incredible philosophy that you've amalgamated from so many different sources and then personalized with all of your own lived experience and wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And you call this?
Psychospiritual Constructivism.
Wow. So, we have PCs, personal computers, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to remember that those are written with code.
Yeah.
And so I love to think about the psychospiritual constructivism as the code, the software of the mind. So thank you for introducing these concepts to me, and I'd love for you to expand on what that actually means.
Yeah, so breaking down the word, I used my robot to come up with this name, right? My GPT in this case, and I have been brain dumping into it over the course of the last 2 years. Just my ideas, my philosophy, how I see life, how I relate to life, how I relate to struggle and difficulty and emotions, all of it. And yeah, a few months ago, I went in and I'm like, if you could consolidate everything that I've brought into and reframe this and name the teaching that I've been delivering and synthesizing, what would it be called? And it helped me come up with a psychospiritual constructivism based on the etymology of what all the words mean, right? And so psychospiritual, of the mind and of the spirit. From that perspective, we are creating everything at the intersection of the mind and spirit. And I also like to think of this intersection as consciousness and reality. Right? Consciousness, I believe, is of the spirit. Reality is of the mind in many ways, of the material. And so at that intersection of consciousness and reality is where we're experiencing life as humans. And so understanding that there's rules that govern that intersection, it allows us to navigate everything that life is bringing to us that we are actually creating for it to be brought to us from a lens of ownership and responsibility and radical perspective, right? Realizing that at that intersection of the psyche and the spirit, I have created everything that I notice within that. And so the constructivism piece is the piece of I am creating everything from where those two things intersect, right? And so this isn't just about the 3D. It's not about the 5D. It's about what happens when we bring both of those together. And the realization and the responsibility and the ownership and the empowerment that comes with, I'm creating all of this. And so this is, I call this the philosophy portion of my teachings. And I actually like to even mess around with the word philosophy.
Yeah.
Because so much of my wisdom and my perspective has been ingrained through psilocybin, through my journeys, through my microdosing. That's where a lot of these downloads come through, a lot of these teachings come through. And either way, it's like a philosophy is meant to be a frame of how we look at life, right? It's a way of relating to things in a way that tries to make sense of a world that is very paradoxical. You can't really make sense of it, no matter how much you try to boil it down, right? And so the philosophy of psychospiritual constructivism is one that just allows you to look at your reality from a perspective of empowerment and groundedness, if you're willing to. Because if we can look at the world through that lens, then what comes with that is also the understanding that I can influence the world I'm looking at through that lens. And that, for me, opened up a lot.
Yes. And for me, that is perpetually opening up a lot.
Yeah.
It is so wild to feel into the energetics that everything is co-created.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so easy if I were to say, well, God has a plan and I'm separate from God. Therefore, God's plan is hierarchically better and more divine than my plan. But how does that verse go? It's like faith without works is folly.
Oh, I haven't heard that one. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The whole idea is if I don't apply the spiritual intuition, the downloads that are coming through, right? All those epiphanies, if I don't actually apply them in my feet, then I'm not going to actually make progress. I'm co-creating all of it. The divine is casting all of these incredible, nuggets of information and connection and direction. And how attuned am I at any given moment to receive and then actually take action upon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. It's downloads don't mean shit without the action, right? That's like an idea never got anybody anywhere. It's the application of the idea. It's the application of the download. It's the application of the wisdom, right? That's where the real magic is born.
And it's deeply empowering and confronting.
Very. It's confronting because we've been, for the last 2,000 plus years, we've been living in a world that has worshipped victimization without even realizing it.
Yeah.
Right? That there is and this is where it gets deeply into the religious programming, like this savior complex feeds the notion that I am victimized by life because I need somebody to save me from it. Right? And so I'm outsourcing myself. And so for people to come back to the self, you need to start realizing where your tendrils lie, where you have given your power away to something and continue to give your power away to anything, actually. And when we start coming back to self through this lens and framing, realizing that I'm creating all of it, then when I start to notice how I'm giving my power away, I've given myself choice. Right? With that awareness comes a deep level of choice that comes with that. And that, this is like gets into divine will and free will, and some people don't think they have a choice, and so they give themselves away to everything. It's the paradox. I believe it's both divine and free. But for people to fully understand that everything they're experiencing in life, everything they're moving through is their choice, it's hard for a lot of people to own if you're still in the perspective of, I'm being victimized by things happening to me.
Is there ever a place for victimization?
To learn from it. But I don't believe that victimization plays a role in our evolution. that can kind of sound contradicting. It's like, yes, we evolve through the victimization because it's teaching us something. So I guess that's not fully true. But I don't believe that there's a place for victimization if we're trying to be in our power in any way. If we're trying to create the life that we want, the victimization ends up becoming the roadblock. A lot of times it has to be there for us to learn in order for us to live the life we want, build the life we want, create the life we want. But I think it's probably the biggest hurdle most people suffer from. And a lot of times don't even realize it because the wound is just so deep. I find I've been doing this work for almost a decade, and I still find things pop up. I'm like, whoa, I'm being a big ass victim right there. Yeah. I'll catch myself like 10, 20, 30 minutes after I say something, and I'll drop back in like, wow, I just projected all my victimization on that situation or that person. And so it's tough because it's so ingrained in the collective psyche.
It also feels like the catalysts that come through, there has to be, because there's always duality, right? And polarity to everything. And there's a oneness and wholeness to it. So of course it's coming through for a divine purpose, yet it feels like it has to split into polarity. Therefore, if I experience something, I feel the emotion has to be felt as a victim, so to speak, as a separate entity, to be able to look around. And then as I actually integrate, right, then I'm empowering. It feels like every catalyst actually sparks that separation. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like that way of looking at it. You know, I think I consider a catalyst anything that we're being delivered in order to learn, right? A catalyst is the lesson. It is the embodiment of this is your block. The universe, God, source, divine, cosmos, I don't care what word you use, is delivering you this very specific thing because that is where the medicine lies. That is where the growth path is. And so the category of victim, that can look a million ways, but catalysts themselves show up in a million ways. And every conversation and every emotion and every perspective and every decision I make and the way I talk to myself and the judgments I hold, I mean, catalysts are constantly just repetitively happening. And the way to find the catalyst is look for the repeating themes in your life. A catalyst is going to continue to show itself until you learn that lesson. And so this is where a lot of people, they attract the same individual in relationship, and then they blame the relationship with the individual. It's like, well, no, that is part of pointing outside of you and not coming back to an empowered state that I am creating this relationship for myself because I've yet to learn from the catalyst that my own divine nature, my soul is begging for me to learn, which is why this thing is repeating. The relationships are easy because that's the most common place that people will see these repeating patterns. Couples get in repeating fights. They attract the same person, right? I've been cheated on. This is my story. I got cheated on like 6 straight relationships. I was blaming them. I'm like, I'm a good guy. What's that? And it's like, no, I was calling that in because I hadn't learned self-love enough within myself to create the boundaries necessary to not attract a person that I knew would play out some action. And so by not finding and receiving and accepting and learning from the catalyst in this case, the world's like, we're going to throw you the same card every time. 10 of spades, 10 of spades, 10 of spades, 10 of spades, until I realize it's 10 of spades and I don't choose that anymore.
And that's evolution.
Yeah.
That's conscious evolution.
Yeah.
When it's of the spirit, a lesson like that around self-love in particular, and then it's showing up as a reflection in the most intimate relationship, it makes perfect sense. And until I actually feel that emotionally and can work through those parts of myself that are, needing more love from, when I was a kid and wasn't getting it from my mom, or, the respect from my dad, or a teacher that said something, it's like all these stories that get held on to for so long. And then we're big kids walking around reliving what's going on in this intelligence system where things have been stored. So I'm also curious about, you said divine and free will paradoxically coexist. I would love to hear what you mean about that.
I just think in general, life is a paradox. And so I find most freedom when I find the paradox. I feel like things synchronistically flow in the paradox. Things make more sense in the paradox. I find myself not judging or choosing sides when I find the paradox, right? Because if the paradox is the allowance for two things to exist simultaneously, that might not always make sense to each other. And in a world where, as Charles Eisenstein talks about, the thing that we suffer from most is the myth of separation, right? And so choosing sides immediately eliminates the entire ability for a paradox to exist, because I've chosen one side or the other. And so inside of a paradox, I find so much freedom, because it's almost like going back to the curiosity thing. It opens my mind enough to actually take a step back and observe that there is truth in both of these things.
Right.
And that expands my consciousness, that expands my awareness, that expands my ability to accept things as they are without attaching to something. And so in divine will and free will, to say it a different way, the path is already laid out and I have choice in how to navigate it. And it's like, when people say that free will doesn't exist, every choice you make is free will. So where I'm going can already be determined, but the very fact that I have choice in the now tells me that free will exists. And maybe my psychedelic experiences, maybe the books I've read, maybe the teachers and coaches I've worked with, who the fuck knows where this comes from. I also have this deeply profound faith in something so much greater than my mind can comprehend, that has a plan for me that I can just trust in so fully and so wholly, knowing that I'm protected. And that's divine will, right? So being able to play in this realm of like this simulation, this game that we're playing in, knowing I have choice makes it more fun. Knowing that I can't make the wrong choice no matter what happens because of the divine plan makes me feel so protected that I can trust and accept everything just as it is.
And you do that without any sort of outside savior?
Not anymore, man. I grew up really Christian, dude. 2 decades of church twice a week, youth camps every year. Yeah, that's a whole podcast we could do on its own, man. Just the myths that are woven in, maybe to touch on that a little bit, because a lot of what we're talking about really stems to belief systems, right? Like our beliefs paint the stories we tell, our stories paint the reality that we see. And that's where a lot of this that we're talking about takes place. The problem I see with religion is, at least in the congregation I was in, they like to pick and choose the parts of the Bible that makes them feel holy, but ignore the fact that the God of that same Bible is a genocidal maniac. Mass killing sprees. He, in Genesis alone, talks about regret for creating humans. And so every single one of us in his image is from a regretful God, a judgmental God, a shaming God, a guilting God, an angry God. It's like you can't just take the loving parts of the Bible and throw all that away. If you believe in the doctrine itself, you must take all of that with you. And so when we have a world where 6 billion plus people follow these Abrahamic religions, and all of those religions are stemmed in a God that paints the same perspective, you wonder why there's so much war,
Of course.
and famine, and genocide. Why there's so much judgment, and spite, and hate, and anger, and rage. Right? Because that is a mirror of the teachings of these doctrines.
How could God be a jealous God? Jealousy couldn't exist. That's duality, that's polarity, that only exists once there's division. God would be encompassment of the entirety, the whole essence and being, the life force that runs through all of us, whether personified or not.
Yeah. It's, Taoism and Law of One, they refer to as the all. It's the way. It's the only thing that exists and will ever exist. And so, this brings in Gnosticism as well. Is like they believe in something higher. They'll never be able to define it. So they leave it right there. It's like, I just know it exists. I don't need to spend my time figuring out what it is. That's where my beliefs lie, right? Like I have an undeniable connection to what I would consider God to be that is radically outside the realms of what my religious God would be. And in this realm, I'm not maintaining the struggles of guilt and shame and control and savior complex that came with religion, right? And there's some beautiful things about that, about community. And that's why a lot of these things work and have worked for so long, is because people desire to believe in something together, right? But when we anthropomorphize a God, make him of us, when the reality is, instead of him being like me in the us category, realizing that we are all individually a fractal of the infinite whole, and so the only way to possibly know what it is if all fractals come together. And so that's why I'm only going to ever understand God from the perspective of what this fractal is, because that's who I am. But everything around us is God, man.
Come to,
Yeah.
one are we?
Yeah, man. And that's it. It's like, we'll never actually know. But if you can trust in that connection, if you can feel that connection, if you can listen to the whispers and know that you're so protected by what that all is, and that this thing goes on infinitum, there's a sense of freedom in that I don't think religion can provide.
It's a big one. I also have a very similar upbringing, and it's interesting because some of my family members, for example, have a deep affinity to Christianity or to Catholicism, and I love it because the more that I've been able to drop into my heart, the more that I can show up with that big capital C word that you mentioned, curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I show up with curiosity as opposed to judging, because it doesn't fit for me, it doesn't feel resonant for me, I can accept them, and I actually get super interested in what it is. For example, the structure,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's practices, and there's the community, there's morals that are theoretically laid out, and agreed upon by a large group. So that can create a lot of safety and security that, if you identify with this label, then that probably means we identify on a lot of different things. But what I found is that I have a much more nuanced palette, and I want to be able to connect between all people, all beings. And so guess what? I have to keep an open hand, an open mind.
Yeah, and it's important to highlight the positive impacts and benefits of it, right? But you can live all those things without the other stuff. You just get to choose what you believe, right? And so if I don't believe in genocide and judgment and those aspects of it, but I do believe in this is where it gets complicated, man. This is where it's like, because then we start naming things good or bad.
Right.
And even that in itself, right? If we go to Hermeticism, it's like the principle of polarity. Nothing is good or bad. There is no hot or cold. Everything's on a scale of the same pole. It's just where on that scale are we? The second we start judging something, we've just created duality again. It's tough, man. This is why this has been a thing for humanity since the very beginning of time.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to just walk more and more in tune with the heart. So I believe the heart is our analog connection. It's the spiritual connection, and AKA the heart portal. And so the heart knows that you and I, we might be in different bodies, but we're actually one spirit. We're one and the same. And yet the mind thinks that this is all that there is. It's all divisive and separate. And so when I'm living out of the mind, I'm divisive, separate, self-focused. And it's so important to fill up our own cup so we actually have energy in surplus to be able to share. So the mind is really a beautiful creation to support this vessel when it's in balance with the heart.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few quotes that come to mind. It's like, this one's mine. The mind creates, but the heart manifests. Right? It's like we can't actually bring anything into existence without the heart. Right? And this is where a lot of people get stuck in the mind, because it just create, idea. And I only know that because I was there for most of my life until recently, right? Actually being able to drop into the heart and realize the power of it. And Robert Edward Grant says this thing too, is something about like the path to enlightenment or the path to wholeness comes when the mind can feel and the heart can think. Yeah, like really creating that cohesion between the two and understanding that both have an actual deeply rooted place within themselves for each other. And that we cannot separate and bastardize one or the other, right? Like a lot of men today that are very trapped in the mind, they'll flinch when you tell them that they need to come into their heart. They're not feeling enough. They're not loving enough, you know? It's like the hypermasculinity comes online. I don't need that. It's like they bastardize the heart. And you have a lot of people that bastardize the mind, which then fuels the mind actually going deeper into itself as a protection mechanism. Instead of realizing, hey, we need both. We absolutely need both. And when we can come together with that, it's like it's the masculine and feminine. That's what they represent as well, right? They need to understand and link and connect into each other at such profound, deep levels of understanding and curiosity and togetherness. And that's what opens up the entire experience, is when we can utilize the power of both. The time we're in is we're very disconnected from the heart. And I'm sure at some point in our history, we're very disconnected from the mind, right? I believe everything moves in cycles, and this just happens to be the one we're in.
Yes, it is. And what can we do through your lens to become more in touch with our heart?
I mean, it's all feeling, right? It's like the heart speaks through emotion. The heart speaks through presence. The heart speaks through communicating what it wants to feel. We had that experience in April at the men's Wachuma retreat. And at the end of the night, when we were in the Maloka on the swamp and we smoked the cannabis, bringing in the feminine energy, I went through that like 30-minute cycle of literally feeling like I was a hairline. I think that's what I said to Jay. I said, I'm a hairline away from freaking the fuck out. You felt like, and we just, you got this, bro. And crawls back to the spot. And I was like, called forth by my brothers in that moment of what it means to actually hold yourself. I think this is what a lot of people are struggling with today. Again, savior complex. I cannot save myself. I need something outside of me to save me. So when I'm going through any discomfort, pharmaceuticals, alcohol, Netflix, weed in an unconscious way, right? Like all of these have a positive and negative way to incorporate them in your life. When you don't realize you're giving your power in that away to those things, we distract and numb from what just wants to be felt, right? Which is what it means to hold yourself. That is parenting, reparenting, that is inner child work, that is internal family systems, that is parts work, is learning to hold yourself in all of it. And so in this medicine experience, the download I had received after that, when I was integrating that experience, was my heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest because it was releasing everything that I hadn't been feeling, right? It was dumping everything that I had been hanging on to that was keeping my heart restricted. It was keeping it tight. That was keeping it from beating with the freedom that it seeks. And we look at a lot of men these days. Men have heart attacks twice, 2.5 times more than women do. And at something like 10 years less age on average than women do. It's wild, bro. And if we don't look at the 3D version of it, what are medical cysts, cholesterol, and all this bullshit that they feed, right? And we look at this from a more mystical, esoteric lens of what it might actually mean, is maybe these men are having the heart attacks because they've spent decades ignoring what the heart actually wants, what it desires, and they have not learned the ability of what it means to hold yourself in what it wants to feel and express. And when you bottle any bodily system up like that for decades long, when it bursts, it's going to come out like this, like a heart attack might, where it's so shocking and so surprising when really it shouldn't be, because you've been stuffing down that discomfort and what your soul's design is here for you to do. And this is the way it manifests. I believe that about all symptomology that we're experiencing in the body. And in that ceremony, that's what I received. It's like, whoa, my heart's been hanging on to that. Right. And so it was an opening through that experience. I was able to like breathe more deeply into my heart and actually feel. Yeah, and that's the work of a lot of men today, man. It's both difficult and it's beautiful to really reconnect to it.
So, interesting transition. You've created a company called Entheos Holistics.
Not a company, but did create an entity.
An entity.
Yeah.
Would you like to describe what it is?
Sure.
Up to?
So the term I like to use is we're a psilocybin-based nutraceutical company, right? We make microdosing supplements. I think the term microdosing has been a little robbed. It focuses so much on the mushroom itself that it takes away the power and potency of all other aspects of nature. And so what we've done is it was birthed from my story, which was a decade-long plus of suffering from pharmaceutical use. Your opioids, Adderall, Vyvanse, Strattera. I tried all of those different ones. Your SSRIs. I was on Viagra and Cialis for 12 years, from 19 to 31. Like really went deep into that world, thinking that, again, they were going to solve my problems, but they were just masking symptoms. Spiritual wounds, emotional wounds, mental wounds, physical wounds. And when I found microdosing, it changed my life. Short version of it. Go to the beach one day with some friends. At that period of my life, I was drinking 3 days a week to blackout status. I was doing blow every single weekend. I was on all these pharmaceuticals during the week. I was working 15 hours a day and thought I was living life the way I was supposed to be happy, right? Because I was doing all the things society. Get by the tables, the women, the drinks, I was making $500,000 a year. It's like the pharmas will cure any symptom. And I was just in it, bro. Depressed, anxious, miserable, didn't hate my friends. I hated how I felt. I hated who I was with these people, right? They were just a reflection of the relationship I had with myself. And we go to the beach one day and my buddy gives me a mushroom chocolate. I'm guessing probably around 250 milligrams. And I remember like fighting him on it. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I heard these things make you lose your mind. He's like, bro, I've seen you snort shit out of a bag from strangers. Like, what are we doing here? I'm like, all right, you're right. You know, he'd been living with me for years. He's one of my best homies. So I trusted him and I ate this chocolate. And I remembered like 90 minutes later, I'm on that beach and I felt the sun on my skin for the first time. Like just that present state of like, whoa, this feels great to just be here now, bringing in the Ramdas. You know, I just felt there. I felt the sand in my toes. I went and got in the water and I just felt hugged by nature. I felt present. And in that presence, all of the mental rumination, the mental chatter, the nonstop voice that just goes on and on with the judgments and the triggers and the self-shaming and guilting, all that went away. And I was just there. And in that moment of being able to like really step into the presence, and I believe in the present moment is where we can find our observer, where we can step back and just start looking at life. This is what all the Eastern philosophies talk about. This is the whole purpose and point of meditation. And this is why I believe microdosing is powerful. Not everybody has an hour a day for 5 years to do a meditation practice to really connect with that observer. But this brings you into a state of mind that teaches you what the observer is, so you can better be equipped to get into that position and roll more. And from that observing presence, I like saw my life undeniably for what it was. I'm like, I don't want any of this shit. And it's like I knew before, but I didn't see it. I didn't really see it.
Just in it.
That first microdose, I was able to back out and like, I don't want any of this shit. I don't want the women. I don't want the work. I don't want the money. I don't want the toys. I don't want the alcohol, none of it. And that began my, couple-year process of like starting to untangle all of those attachments and wounds and friendships and behaviors and patterns. And what also sparked me to want to do this for the rest of my life. And so I spent a few more years in finance, and then I sold my house and used all that money to start Entheos Holistics. And we create microdoses that are built for specific uses. So one's like cognitive function, it's like a nootropic. One's for more emotional regulation and creating more softness in life. So it's great for like intimacy and connection with people. We have another one that's a social blend. And so it's a great alcohol replacement. It really brings you back to center, calms the nervous system, releases that nervous anxiety that so many people hold. Another one is for more energetic, like coming into the body, like somatics, feeling in the body, feeling energized. I believe Vital in the Body is the one you're on, right? And so it helps people remember the power and potency and divinity that these vessels are, right? And the whole purpose of all of them is each formula, we use herbs and plants from Chinese and Ayurvedic knowledge that have been around for thousands of years, that tried and tested, that we know exactly what those do. Those create the energetic on it. The psilocybin's the activator. So just as in nature, under every footprint we take, I think it's something like 300,000 square miles of mycelium under every foot we take in a forest, not when we're in an environment like this, but it's wild. There's not a tree, plant, weed, or grass in all of nature that doesn't communicate or share resources via the mycelial network. And so when in our blends, that's the same thing that we're looking at the mushroom as. It's just the activator. It's just the synergistic communicator between all of these other herbs and plants that are really what the potency of the medicine is. And so it's creating this effect in the body that helps me step into the energetic frequency of whatever I'm looking at. And so if I have obesity, right, and I struggle with food choices and moving my body, something like Vital and Embody is going to put me in an energetic state of mind that's going to help me be more motivated to make better choices, to move my body more, right? And then the psilocybin itself, it's an activator to the mind, the body, and the soul. And so it brings us into the presence. It helps us notice our thought patterns more clearly, right? We've realized how we talk to ourselves, right? We see our distortions. That's the mind. The body is the somatics. It's the emotionals, the nervous system regulation. It's taking us out of fight or flight and putting us in rest and digest. It's helping us access the emotions that are already just beneath the surface that are begging to be seen, felt, witnessed, or expressed. And then the soul is the ever-present moment. It's the only thing that exists, right? And so you have these herbs and plants creating this medicinal effect. You have the psilocybin reconnecting us to the mind, body, and soul. Not that I like it to be the focus, but we could talk about the science, neuroplasticity, neurogenesis, glutamate and GABA regulation, the quieting of the default mode network, which is your ego center, right? And so now when I'm out of my ego center, I can look at my life from a different lens and start to realize like, whoa, I don't like making that choice. I don't like that behavior. And then when I make a better choice, I'm reinforcing that good pattern through neuroplasticity. And so microdosing is so multifaceted compared to a pharmaceutical that's just there to numb the symptom. Right? This is going to pull to the surface what needs to be seen, what is required to be seen for you to realize why that symptomology is being created, and then give you what you need to be able to make better choices in your life and reinforce those choices to live a more free, abundant, joyful life that we're all capable of.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
wow. There's so many directions we can go. I just love what you were bringing up around the neural network of the globe, the Earth's brain, so to speak, in which all these plants are actually able to communicate is through mycelial networks, which, as we talk about, as within, so is out. And as we look at basically anything under a microscope, it reflects on the micro as in the macro. And so what happens inside our own personal mind is the same thing that's happening within the ground. Trees will literally siphon nutrient. When there's a forest fire coming, they'll like move water towards the ones
wild,
that are getting in harm's way. And I mean, we're just beginning to scratch the surface. Fantastic Fungi. That movie just opened up my eyes so much. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Wow. And so one of the things that I love, because a lot of people are into entheogenics, right? Things that help to bring us into our connection to spirit or God. And what I love about what you're doing is you're taking all of these, like when you look at the ingredient breakdown, there's 8 to 12 ingredients on each of these that are tried and true. Like there's ginseng in there, and there's vitamin B12 and B6 and some herbs that I've never even heard of. And so it's so interesting that it's not even a microdosing supplement. It's like, that's the synergizer. It really helps to pull everything together so that I step out of the way and can just embody myself a little more, can allow my soul to flow through just a little bit more. Man, thank you.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, and it's like, it's not even mine, man. It has come through me, right? I'm sure I was one of 500,000 vessels that were delivered this idea. I just happened to be the one that was able to tap my network in the right way to bring this thing into existence. It's like, I don't believe ideas are ours. I believe that they are a life of their own, and they want to be created and birthed like anything else in this life. And so an idea will drop into hundreds of thousands of different people, and every single one of those people who receive that idea is equipped with bringing that to life. Some just don't choose to. And this is where divine will comes in and free will comes in, right? You are only ever delivered what you are fully and wholly capable of bringing into this life on your own.
Did you hear that?
So any artistic expression, any idea you have, you are already equipped now with everything you need to bring that thing into existence, as long as you're willing to try, as long as you're willing to be intentional and show up and give this thing life. It's like every time I think a lot about the currency of attention. It's like being intentional with the currency of your attention. And so if something wants to come through with you, if you cannot stop thinking about it, this thing is begging to be birthed. But most people live in such fear of what it means to leave a system that is saving them, right? This comfy job. That instead of being in the excitement of what wants to come through, they're drowning in, I wish I could do that, but here I am. Right. And it's like, it's destroying people one soul at a time. But that's what ideas are. There's a reason. I would venture to say every person who listens or watches this has seen an infomercial like, I had that idea.
Oh, yeah.
All of us. We've seen something where it's like, damn, I thought about that a couple years ago. Right. Because it was also pinging you like, do you want to bring this thing? Do you want to bring? Right? These things want to come through us because whatever is delivering these messages are here for the evolution of humans and consciousness. And so Entheos, there's been a lot of parts and a lot of people and a lot at play. I have just been a vessel to watch this thing be what it wants to be. And that's been the most fun part.
I'm feeling into some of the studies that I've heard. One was around tapping. And so Paul Stamets has a stack that uses niacin, psilocybin, niacin, and I believe it's B12. No, that's what niacin is.
Turkey tail chaga. He's got 3 different functional mushrooms, the niacin, and then the psilocybin in there. I think it's 5 ingredients total.
Okay.
That's like our tried and true. So we mimicked a little bit. We just added quercetin and black pepper because those help detoxify the brain in many ways. And so it helps when it crosses the blood-brain barrier, plus the niacin. I mean, it's my favorite stack for sure. Anyways, the tapping.
So I've tried that one.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. And yeah, the rate in which somebody is able to tap it's indicative of so many other strengths, ability to learn, dynamic, like the ability to have a high refresh rate in life, right? To be able to perceive and process and integrate different information.
Yeah.
And so I remember looking at this study and it was amazing how just a little microdose, right, with these other additives as well, was able to improve the rate of tapping that was available for the entire pool of people that took it, right?
I mean, bro, that's just one of them. Like they did a study out of, I believe, Imperial College London, where with people's sight and vision. And I can't remember the term, but like they could see the outlines of things more clearly. And so imagine if you're a hunter-gatherer 10,000 years ago, right? It's like you're out there hunting, to the visual acuity.
Yes.
Right? Not only could they see more clearly, they could see outlines of things more clearly. They could see more further, and colors are more beautiful. And so let's take it away from the study thing and just what that means as a human. When I microdose, I literally see the world differently. I literally see the world more clearly, more beautifully, more colorfully, and more alive. Right? And so there's something about, we love to fit everything into a scientific paradigm, but science is just another way of spirituality trying to make sense of itself. We are more connected is what all that means. I'm more connected to myself, and I'm being able to reflect that through my eyes, right? Our eyes are creating everything it sees. I'm sure people have seen everything's actually upside down with how the eyes perceive it, and then it's flipped in the mind. It's like, If everything about my visual acuity and awareness and attunement and color structure changes, that is because I'm more connected to what that system is presenting me in the outside of life. How does that affect everything when you're more connected to yourself, when you're more connected to nature, when you're more connected to the present moment? Right? That connection is where we start to meet the divine.
Absolutely. And people.
Everything.
The squirrels.
Yeah,
All the
man.
creatures. It's so interesting. That brings in a really just powerful awareness. The way that animals respond to you or I when we're moving through the world, especially when we're out backpacking, we're in nature, you know, are they scared? Because if I watch deer, when I come up, they study, they are locked in. And sometimes they'll be chewing their grass, just, and just studying. And I believe they're locking into our energy profile.
Yeah.
And so the more that I've been able to smooth out my energy, it used to be very spiky. Got a lot of fire in me, you know, a lot of spark. And so I'd kind of come in hot. I still do occasionally. But now it's much smoother. And I've noticed that relationship. I went into a friend's house the other day, and their dog always barks, quote unquote, 15-year-old dog. Can barely see at this point, just like an old feller. And just came up and was just like tail wagging and stuff. And it felt so good to my heart. You know, I just showed up and it just loved me.
Yeah. I mean, nature's just a reflection of everything's just a reflection of us, man. Everything. And you hear that all the time. My dog usually doesn't like people like that, you know, and then they'll come up to somebody and just love on them and lick them and not even bark. And it's like, well, that's just a reflection of who that person is. You know, we can see that in everything. It's like our world, what we're going through in the earth right now, you know, Gaia Sophia, the intelligence of this planet, is a reflection of our collective consciousness because we are of her as we are of everything else. And so it's like when we get to find those attunements in just my individual existence, I have actually literally changed the entirety of existence as well. And so that somebody asked me in my comments the other day, like, I had a post about you're depressed because you're not expressing, right? And she was like, no, I'm depressed because of the state of the world. What can we do? I'm like, it's like Ram Dass talked about. The only thing we can do for anybody else is go deeply within. That's it. And the more of us that do that, it's going to be deeply reflected without as well.
That's right. Yeah. And the world is my perspective at all times. One of the things I find fascinating, and I first learned about this from Bashar.
Yeah.
He spoke about how the eternal now, we're not actually moving through space and time, but we're basically infinite frames going through. And so my frame is my awareness right now. I'm seeing you, I'm seeing this beautiful environment, these cameras, right? And in that frame, how quickly can I adjust? So as I adjust my direction and my focus, using the mind to direct the masculine energy, to direct the electrical signal going out, that it actually changes my history. And so this is interesting because if you were to ask me, what's my life story, like you prompted our group just a few days ago, my life story shifts based on the frame that I'm wearing. Wherever I'm looking, am I empowered? Am I looking at it through that kind of a lens? Because I guarantee you the story that I'm going to pull about my past is directly linked to how I'm feeling and relating to the future and the now, right? And so as we shift anything internally, it actually shifts forward and backwards in time, kind of like the Mandela effect. Where we've seen this, I don't know about you, but I certainly remember the monocle on the Monopoly.
Me too, bro.
Like,
I remember Sinbad movie with Sinbad. He played his own character, but everyone's like, no, there was only, it was Shazam with Sinbad. I remember that movie, and everyone's like, no, it was always Shaq. I'm like, no, there was two movies. Bro, there's a lot of them. And Jiffy Peanut Butter apparently never existed. Like, there's all these ones where I'm like, which reality am I in? And Bashar talks about this too, because we're coming into a fourth dimension planetary shift law. One talks about this. There's a lot of prophecy. I went down a deep rabbit hole. It's like the Hopi, the Sunni, the Zulu, everything, the fourth turning, everything talks about this period of time. Everything. and the Red Nation. I mean, we can go on and on, right? About this period of time, this 12-year period from 2020 to 2032 is what was estimated, is we're entering a fourth dimension reality, which is of the heart, which is of the wisdom. And in that, we're going to go into a reality split, which is basically of love or of fear. Do you want to still be in a system of control? That world is absolutely going to be populated for you. This is where you talk about like revelations. This is another thing about religion. They deeply instill fear into people. And so when they see the split coming, they end up naturally navigating towards the fear-based premise because that's where control is easier. Or we're also going into a period of love, right? We see the heart opening on a planetary scale on such a much wider level. And so a lot of this splitting that we're seeing, that we're calling the Mandela effect, is just the precursor to what is actually happening to our realities. You have people that are going deeper with themselves and loneliness and spinning and depression, anxiety, and you have people coming back to community and realizing that the only way is through togetherness. And over the next 5 years, we're going to see this reality split in different ways. Bro, I believe some wild shit's going to happen. I believe that we're going to start to be introduced with ETs, and there's going to be both benevolent and malevolent based on what your belief system is. Again, our beliefs are creating our individual realities. I believe that I am so protected when these entities do come into existence on this plane. We've been seeing, dude, I'm Jesse Michaels and Area 52 and UAP GERB, these YouTube channels about sightings and everything happening with disclosure and stuff. It's so imminent, bro. It's wild. I feel so protected because of my connection to the divine. I know no matter what, I will always be protected. So when these things do show up, I know they're here to benefit me. I know they're here to protect me. And then if you watch something like Graham Hancock's work and what he went through, what he created on both seasons, but majority season 1 with Ancient Apocalypse, every one of these cultures, every single one of these traditions talked about the world in chaos, and being showed up and guided them into the next stage. And from there, they lived a golden age. They were taught how to farm. They were taught how to find water. They were taught how to build communities. They were taught how to use technologies. And so here we are coming back around. Seemingly the world's on the brink of chaos with all this disclosure stuff closed. It's like, these are just repetitive. They're the same stories that have been told for thousands of years. And if everything moves in cycles, and we know it does, writing's on the wall, in my opinion.
That's right. And if the information feels resonant, look at who's trying to suppress it.
Yeah. Yeah. And are those people already trying to control you in other ways?
Right.
If the answer is yes in any way, then they're trying to control you in all ways. Everything is a benefit of the hierarchical structure. I just choose not to play in that anymore. And so when you choose not to play anymore, that's what awakening is. Just like, that's what the Matrix has been, that I've been ascribing to and like choosing to participate in. I don't want that anymore. Yeah. Awakening isn't realizing one political party is wrong and the other's not. It's realizing that the whole thing is bullshit and that we get to start a new system.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And that's an important distinction right there, is building systems in parallel, right? If I want to make change, I don't go into Washington, D.C., for example. No, we look at the Constitution and we look at our inalienable rights, not inalienable, inalienable. There can't be a lien against our rights because they are gifted to us by our Creator. This is pretty cool. The Constitution is a unique aspect of the United States that allows, for example, Entheos holistics to be able to operate in a pure and divinely aligned way, shall I say. Would you like to share a little bit about how it actually, is structured and why you don't call it a business?
Yeah. So 92%, I think it is, maybe it's 94% of people in prison are not in prison for constitutional violations. They're in prison for commercial code violations, for UCC law. And no one really understands what that means, right? Uniform Commercial Code, UCC violations, is when you have, most of us unknowingly, agreed to operate in the business of what the United States is, which is where you see a lot of your constitutional rights taken away, because you've ascribed yourself to a different paradigm altogether. And so what we've done is gone back to the realization of what my constitutional rights are. I believe psilocybin is a sacrament that reconnects me to myself. And the closer and more I'm reconnected to myself, the more I'm connected to God. And this is part of my Religious Freedoms Act, to practice my spirituality in whatever way I want. And so the use of this sacrament to reconnect with myself, that brings me healing, also invariably and inevitably reconnects me to God, because I'm more connected to myself. And the deeper I go within, the deeper I go without, right? And the more I feel that trust and acceptance for all that is, realizing that there's divinity in everything. And so the way we've set this up is we may not be legal, but we are very lawful. Another big distinction, right? So what we've done is we are a spiritual sanctuary, right? We don't take any profit. Everything we do is donation-based. This week alone, I think we had 12 people order product online and got it for completely free. I paid $28 per pack that they ordered for them to get my product. Because we are not a profit, commerce-based business. We are a mission. And those that can support the mission pay full price. And those that cannot get access to the product for whatever they can. Right? So on top of the free, some people had used a 95% discount code. So it's like you go on our website, you fill out a quiz that takes you maybe 2 minutes, and you select your discount, your contribution adjustment code, rather, from 5 to 100%. You have full control and choice over what you choose to donate to the mission, right? So that alone takes us out of the commerce space. And then we get into trust law, we get into private member associations. And what we've done in that sense is, to even get access into the Entheos field, you have to be a member of our PMA. And so you can't even see the website without signing up to be a member of the private member association, Entheos Holistics. Now, what we've done there is that PMA is owned by a trust. And so we're not a legal entity. I am actually separate of it. My legal obligation as trustee is to bring the mission of this trust to life. The beneficiaries of that trust just so happen to be the members of the PMA. And so our legal obligation as Entheos Holistics is to provide sacrament that is in benefit to the same members that are in the PMA, because they're the beneficiaries of the trust. And then the mission of that trust is to fulfill the mission of our sanctuary, which is another trust, right? And the mission of our sanctuary trust is to distribute the sacrament of psilocybin to bring people back to holistic healing through the reconnection of their mind, body, and soul, to realize the divinity within themselves as part of the divinity of the all. That was a good one. That was like a good one for the world. They've gotten better and better through all three.
That's right. That is so powerful, bro. And thank you for being transparent about all of this too, so that our listener actually can sit with this and feel into what resonates in our own lives.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the church model, right? If we look at churches and how they operate, there's so many good things about these organizations. And there's reason why they're blessed by our whole government, our whole, structure, because it's a connection to source, to God, to spirit. And the more that I can show up with faith and trust and hope, the better person I am, to use a dualistic term.
Yeah.
The more loving, the more connective, the more supportive, the more compassionate. So when I see somebody else, if I have a little bit more heart in me, I'll give something to them if I feel their need, right? And I love that that's the premise of how you've operated with Entheos, that literally you will pay them in order to receive the sacrament, AKA they won't contribute anything in your not you, but the organization is holding all of those costs, all the infrastructure, because that is the mission. It's to connect people with their minds, bodies, and souls.
Yeah, man. Yeah, because it's when you come back to home to self like that, you're empowered, right? You start to realize the ways you've been given that away to anything outside yourself. And that's what we're all seeking, is that empowered self-love. And it's like, that's what makes life so beautiful, man, is when we can really tap into that and attune to that and feel that. And so, yeah, I'm just honored to be able to provide this way. And it's especially in this psychedelic space where it's like so much of this shit is still just for profit base. Still so many companies putting shit in plastic bottles, and it's like we're not actually building a new paradigm doing that. Right. And you mentioned something. It's like we have to build we are not even half. We know some people doing big work in this.
That's right.
Are building the new world of what it means to relate. Right. Barter systems are going to come back. Trade systems are going to come back. Donation systems are going to come back in mass scale. And it's just cool to be part of that on the small front for now.
That's right. And land,
Yeah.
the tribe, and rite of passage experiences so that we actually discover who we are.
Shout out Joe Holly.
Joe Holly, who just did a podcast with. And shout out Soul Mission Activation, spiritandflavor.com/Peru if you're interested to learn more.
Oh, I'll be there in January. Yes, sir.
Oh, let's grow.
Yes, sir. I'm going to be there.
Yeah, it's so incredible to be surrounding with more and more beautiful souls that are aligned, you know, new earth. I've heard that term so much. It's like, what does it mean? Well, it means operating to me. It means operating through the heart first, and it's supported by the mind. It's like, yeah, that checks the box, and it's directed here, right? It's like, this is the mission. This is the magnetic pull to whatever direction that we're going. And so again, to your point is, if somebody would like the sacrament, they can have it for free because that's the North Star.
Yeah.
Is that supported by the mind? Yes, because other people are going to contribute that are in a place of higher economic abundance, because that's only one of the forms of abundance that we actually get to experience here.
Yeah.
Synchronicities, the connections. I've got God bones flowing left and right. Weather, like plants, animals, the way everything coalesces. And, you know, there's so many mysterious things that take place. And I know for myself, I'm in an interesting position right now where I'm creating a few things that are new, and yet I don't have this long runway of what it looks like. There's so much trust and faith in each step, right? The step feels aligned. And so I'm taking it and I'm trusting that the road keeps unfolding. And so some of that is coaching offerings directly. Hit me up if you're interested to learn more. And, you know, working with many New Earth architects to really bring forth these heart vision ideas in a way that's actually sustainable, that actually feels good for the mind, body, and soul, for the earth, for everybody that's involved.
Yeah, bless that mission, brother. Aho.
Thank you, bro. Wow. So where is it that people can get in touch with you, brother?
Yeah, all the handles are I am Austin West. So it's the website, the Instagram. That's pretty much all I use, but easy to contact me on there and check out all the things I got going on.
Okay. Fantastic, brother. Well, thank you so much for hopping on. This has been absolutely amazing, mind-boggling, lifting.
Yes, sir. Such a pleasure, brother.
Thank you, bro. All right. Thank you so much for tuning all the way to the end. You know, you are one of the special humans that actually is aware that you're going to keep getting more and more nuggets, more and more expansion in your life by having the dedication to actually finish things and follow through. I'm saying it to you because I need to hear this as well. So thank you so much for being one of those incredible, beautiful souls, and may the source be with you. Peace and love.